video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel. And today I want to expand a little bit on MicroStrategy. I asked you guys yesterday if you thought there was a significant risk with all of the leverage and the debt that MicroStrategy are taking on. And so I'm going to touch on that today. I'm going to cover the MicroStrategy chart, which is something that's normally reserved for the members section, but I think it's important. I'm going to show you a few things that to me are very interesting and somewhat concerning at the same time. A couple of announcements before we get into today's episode. Number one, I'm not going to be putting out a video tomorrow morning because I'm hoping to go live in the evening with chemo, and I think that will be around 6 PM GMT. And the other thing is I'm going to be running a whole heap of Black Friday stuff, so discount on the Cycle PDF, a discount on some merch in the merch store. I'm in the middle of working on getting a bunch of additional discounts for things like cold wallets, for things like TradingView Pro accounts and all that kind of thing. So if you're in the market for any of that kind of thing, or if you just like a bargain, then stay tuned for that. As of Friday, I'm going to put together a whole heap of trading-related discount stuff for you guys. MicroStrategy just bought another nearly 52,000 Bitcoin at $88,600. So whilst there's a whole heap of people out there that are saying things like, this move is overextended, I'm not buying that, it needs to pull back first, blah, blah, blah. Saylor doesn't care. Okay, he just doesn't care, he keeps buying, and maybe that's fine. As of yesterday, I was kind of suggesting that perhaps under the hood, there could be, I don't know, a honeypot for lack of a better term, or perhaps this could present a risk as we move into a bear market at some point for Bitcoin. These are not my words, MicroStrategy could be the Luna of this cycle, but I was raising the question, right? Is this really a risk? And I asked you guys to weigh in on this. A lot of people were quick to point out that a lot of the Bitcoin and the debt are actually convertible notes. A lot of the debt is financed at less than 1%. I think it was either 0.8 or 0.85% the debt. So that to me is not an alarming level, actually. If it was a lot higher than that, then maybe we could talk about margin calls and stuff. But it seems like a liquidation cascade is not really top of the risk list for MicroStrategy at the moment. And they've just raised another 1.75 billion in 0% notes, okay? 0%. So, I mean, you can't get margin called on 0%, right? That's my thought anyway. Now, perhaps that is a brutally ignorant statement to make, but 0%, it seems like they'll probably be okay. But I understand as much as people want me to come on here and jump up and down every day of the week and say, Lambo season is here, up only, we don't have to do any work, never selling, okay, we're just going to get rich and it's going to be really easy. As much as I understand that's what people want to hear, I hope you can respect that I just don't approach markets that way, okay? I very much believe in Pred's saying, which is only the paranoid survive, okay? And one of my favorite sayings is plan for the worst and hope for the best. And it really just comes from a place of experience, okay? In my personal experience, I've made every mistake there is to make, and I've made it countless times, okay? If I was smarter, I would have learned the first time I made the mistake and not made it again. But for me, I've made every mistake over 100 times because I'm dumb and I'm a slow learner. But having made them all 100 times, okay, I now approach markets with a lot of caution. I now have a lot of respect for risk. And I understand that that's not something that you're used to seeing on YouTube, particularly if you're newer into the space. And by all means, if you want to disrespect your capital, if you want to not respect risk, that's entirely your prerogative, okay? But please don't get too frustrated with me for approaching markets with caution and with respect for my own capital. I've worked very, very hard for a long, long time to get to where I am, okay? And the only way I've done that is by understanding that I need to respect my own capital and I need to respect risk. So it's not FUD. I'm not trying to FUD the price. I'm currently long MicroStrategy. We're going to touch on the chart in a minute. I'm going to show you a few things. But this very approach to markets of being paranoid, of being cautious, of planning for the worst and hoping for the best has saved me a bunch of times, countless times in my career. Most recently, and pertaining to Bitcoin, it kept me out of BlockFi, which of course went bankrupt. And it also kept me out of using the FTX exchange. And I see quite a few parallels in sentiment and the way market participants behave towards MicroStrategy as I do towards FTX, okay? Now, let's be really clear. I'm not saying MicroStrategy is the next FTX, nor am I saying that I knew FTX was going to get liquidated and the amount of foul play there was going to come to light that it did, okay? That's not what I'm suggesting. I've not got a crystal ball. I didn't understand that that was truly going to happen. But what I did do is I noticed two massive things. Number one, I looked at SBF and his ties to his family and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, I do not trust that guy at all. And number two, and this is where the parallel to MicroStrategy comes, I looked at the way market participants and sentiment was around FTX. Now, at the time of FTX in its heyday, it was the fastest growing exchange. It was sponsoring every man and his dog. it was almost seen as too big to fail, okay? People were putting this guy on a pedestal as if he was the absolute savior to the space. And every time you ever mentioned FTX, right, or SBF and his connections, anytime you ever brought that up, people would immediately be like, why are you trying to FUD, bro? No one wants to hear that, okay? No one cares what you think. And like I said, this paranoid instinct of mine led me to say, I don't want anything to do with that guy or anything he touches. And then sometime later, okay, right when everyone thought it was impossible, it comes out that, of course, the entire thing was a Ponzi. Needless to say, the exchange gets liquidated. It turns out he didn't really have a lot of the money or the Bitcoin that he was supposed to have. I'm sure you know the story. But really, I think what it comes down to is when everyone is thinking the same, someone is not thinking. And I would much rather be paranoid about this whole MicroStrategy situation and it turn out to be fine, okay? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. I would much rather that than just sit back and go, you know what? Zero risk. Right? No problem whatsoever. Nothing can possibly go wrong. And then I put my feet up on the desk and then the next thing you know, something goes wrong, right? So I hope you can understand that. I respect my capital. I've worked too hard not to respect risk. And part of the way I respect risk is I'm always looking around me to say, how are people going to possibly get blindsided here? And I think this is just one potential way to do it. Now, again, it is not me calling for MicroStrategy to blow up. It's not me calling for any kind of liquidation cascade or anything like that. But if it were to happen, I think we would be able to look back at this and say, well, yeah, the sentiment around this was very similar to the sentiment around FTX, which if you were here for that, you know, okay, that was the whole golden child. That was the golden era. That was the golden exchange. Nothing could possibly have gone wrong with FTX, right? So anyway, it just feels a little bit familiar to that. Again, not a call or a prediction. In the short term, it's pretty encouraging, okay? MicroStrategy keeps putting a bid underneath Bitcoin. They keep buying more and more Bitcoin. And now we've got Marathon announcing a $700 million convert to acquire more Bitcoin. We've also seen Semler Scientific raise 21 million and buy Bitcoin with it. And of course, we've seen Metaplanet over in Japan acquiring a whole heap of Bitcoin as well. So we may well be in the early stages of this whole corporate game theory, this race to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet and implement the MicroStrategy return. And of course, if that's true, then again, there's a huge demand for Bitcoin coming into the space with a limited supply. You would expect long-term this to have very, very, very positive effects on the price of Bitcoin. So Camel, what's the problem, right? Are you just being paranoid for no reason? Are you just going to be paranoid and end up being proven wrong? Quite possibly, yes. But one thing I do know pretty well is charts, okay? And when we take a look at this MicroStrategy chart, I think we're getting dangerously close to seeing the move exhaust. We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, and now probably working on the 5th. Does it mean we can go higher in the short term? Yes. Am I currently long? Yes. You can see this was one of the positions we got in the members section, okay? And it's blown all the way through the target. I have no reason at all whatsoever to be bearish on this stock yet. I know a bunch of people were getting very twitchy when we were up in this neighborhood and selling out early, but we're long and strong and we're going to keep going, okay? And this is after getting a core allocation at the lows in the longer term accounts, which, by the way, I'm getting ready to dump in the not too distant future, and trading this thing all the way up and then getting out somewhere here in the yen carry trade unwind before that whole thing occurred. And like I said, now we're back in, right? Now we're back in, we're long and strong, and I think the thing is going higher in the short term. But one thing that's super, super interesting to me about this, okay, is like I just showed you with Kushi, we've got an Elliott wave count that supports this move almost being complete. And then for anyone that's been part of the Camel Crew for any length of time, you can probably already see the 3 angles here, okay? This is my first angle here, second angle here, and now I believe we're in that third and final angle, okay? Now, again, long and strong expecting higher prices won't even consider selling until we get a trend line breakdown on this third angle. But objectively speaking, that is the 3 angles, okay? I also believe this is leading Bitcoin. If I overlay a Bitcoin chart here, which is the pink on top of the MicroStrategy chart, which is the candles, okay? Have a look what happens before. Notice how MicroStrategy in the candles peaks, it leads the top, okay? Then Bitcoin tops a few weeks later, and by then we saw huge divergence, okay? Lower highs in MicroStrategy, higher high, lower high, as Bitcoin makes the divergence in the other direction with a higher high, and that was all she wrote, okay? But notice the theme here, MicroStrategy leads the top. It tops first, and once MicroStrategy had topped, we knew that it's probably time to start thinking about looking for a top in Bitcoin. We saw the same thing towards the 4-year cycle low. MicroStrategy made a low, okay, and then diverged by making an equal low, a double bottom here, whilst Bitcoin made a low and then went on to produce one final lower low. This was a big indication, a leading indicator that this was indeed the 4-year cycle low. MicroStrategy had bottomed and it had led that bottom, and then it had also led the start of the bull market. And then most recently, we also saw MicroStrategy lead this breakout, okay? MicroStrategy bottomed first, went into a big rip-roaring rally ahead of Bitcoin, and we were using this in real time on the channel and in the member section to say MicroStrategy probably knows something here. It's probably leading, and it probably is indicative of what is to come in Bitcoin. And of course, needless to say, Bitcoin has indeed followed MicroStrategy's leading indicator once more. So I continue to make the case that MicroStrategy is not too far from a top, both from the Elliott wave idea and using Camel's 3 angles of attack. Okay, I believe we're in the third. We may even be about to set a fourth. Okay, this would not be impossible. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if we get something like this. It'll also help us get out closer to the top. I'm not quite ready to set the 4th angle yet, but for now at least, okay, that is certainly 3 angles. It's certainly late in the Elliott wave count. And if this thing starts to top, something like this, perhaps pull back, one final high, break down, it is in this neighborhood where I will be expecting to see a top within days to perhaps a maximum of 2 weeks come in for Bitcoin. Just hovering my cursor around here based on my arbitrary yellow squiggle, that would be right around February. So a couple of months either side of that, again, fits the idea that Bitcoin is not as early in its cycle as many people want to believe. So again, right, long and strong. Super bullish, okay? As you can see, traded the thing the whole way up, still holding my core allocation. But if we do get something like this play out, okay, some kind of pullback, bounce off of support, one final higher high, and then a breakdown, it is here that I will be looking to not only lock in the profit on this trade, but also unwind the core allocation that I bought at the 4-year cycle lows, which has been held in my longer term accounts, right? I will be looking to get rid of that up here, because even in the worst case scenario that this turns out to be wrong and it goes on to make a higher high, well, that's still enough gains for me, right? And by then we'll be quite late in the 4-year cycle, and I'd be thinking, okay, even if it makes a higher high, I'll just miss that and wait for the bear market low, that 4-year cycle low in 2026. I'm really happy with the way I've handled MicroStrategy and Bitcoin this cycle, okay? But you know, when you look at these 3 angles, this is part of my system is these 3 angles. We're in that third for MicroStrategy, and then of course, if things are going to go wrong, if things are going to hit the fan, this would be the time where they start to, okay? When we lose this trend line, when we start to enter a bear market, when it starts to lead Bitcoin into its bear market, things can go undetected for a little while, okay? But going all the way back to this bear market, okay, at first, it was just a bit of a bear market. People were still very bullish here. Okay, it was still possible that we could have made a higher high from here. It wasn't until we get into this kind of neighborhood that things started to actually blow up. Okay, this is where all of the liquidations started to come out. Okay, and it is the bear markets that cause the black swans, and it's the recessions that cause the black swans, not the other way around. A lot of people think everything's fine, we get a black swan, and then we enter a recession. It's usually the opposite way. Okay, normally how it works is we get the onset of a recession, a bear market, a risk-off period, and it's this lack of capital, it's the retraction in expansion of economic activity, it's those kind of things, the rises in unemployment, okay, the increases in debt, it's those kind of stress conditions that pressure over-leveraged companies and foul players, and only under those pressures do the black swan events become visible, right? So that's how we get the whole FTX collapse. It's because all the while things are going up and they had a constant inflow of money, they can hide the fact that all they're doing is spending it on themselves and on properties in the Bahamas and everything else, okay? It's only when we get down into here, when people become forced sellers, when the financial conditions become very stressed, that's when the tide goes out and we get to see who's been swimming naked. And it's the same deal with like the Lehman Brothers collapse and Bear Stearns, okay? It wasn't that they occurred at the top and then we entered a recession. It was that we'd already began a significant downturn, a big bear market, a global recession. And again, the recession exposes the leverage, it exposes the foul play, and that's how you get the black swan off the back of the bear market and the recession. So it's not the other way around. It's not black swans causing recessions and bear markets. It's recessions and bear markets that expose black swan events. If we are going to see some kind of black swan like this show up, this is the kind of neighborhood you would expect it to show, right? You would expect, because right now everything's fine. They keep printing money, okay? Taking on convertible notes, buying Bitcoin with it. Bitcoin goes up, they make more money, infinite money glitch, okay? But if we get a breakdown, and that makes perfect sense from a technical basis, then we have this bear market start to unfold. Sometime down here, okay, that's where we get financially stressed conditions. And if a black swan event or a liquidation cascade or something is going to go wrong and blow up, this would be the area you see it. And of course, that's what forces the huge downside thereafter. So all of this could indeed be nothing more than speculation and conjecture. All of this may not even present a risk at all. And for now, we're going to continue to be long and strong and see what the market will give. Okay, but again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's really important. We have had 3 angles. We're in the third right now. We might even be in the fourth. When we get these kind of setups, okay, they usually lead to bear market declines, just like we saw back here. In fact, let's zoom in and show you the exact same setup back here. This back here looking an awful lot like a hyperwave setup, isn't it? If I do this. Okay? So you can see when we get these parabolic advances, okay, 1, 2, and 3, markets cannot move in a straight line near vertical and sustain that move for extended periods of time. Okay, this is pure euphoria, greed, and FOMO, and they always resolve to violent and spectacular downside breaks. To put it into context, okay, from this peak right here to this low took just 17 days and was about 60% top to bottom. Things can happen, and they can happen very, very fast. And again, this is why I'm so paranoid when it comes to markets. This is a 70% decline in 70 days. And then when we fast forward to today, what have we got? We've got the 3 angles, okay? And arguably, if we set this one here like a hyperwave, then we might have 1 here, okay? 2, we might be in 3, and 4 may well be in play right now, okay? So we're going to continue to be long and strong. One thing I'm quite good at is pushing the trades and not getting too jittery and selling too early, okay? I'm quite good at pushing these trades for all they're possibly worth. But again, you know, if you think that this is just going to go on indefinitely, then I got a bridge to sell you, right? So long, strong, and paranoid, as always. And I know I have already said it once before, but I think it's really, really important. Of course, if we get that top come in, it kind of implies that Bitcoin's top is pretty soon as well, right? It implies Bitcoin's top is coming shortly thereafter, just a matter of weeks. At least that's based on historical data. And again, if all of that is to occur sometime, I don't know, Q1 of 2025, it will catch an awful lot of people off guard because they will be aiming for the end of 2025 for that cycle top. So a little bit of a pullback, one final squeeze, and then I think Camel is going to duck out of this position and walk away without looking back until 2026. Today is also a massive day because we're going to have the first attempt at 100k according to James, and I actually think this is pretty reasonable. I've been saying 100k this week as the options launch on Bybit today, okay? But this is also, historically speaking, usually a top marker, okay? And I've said this before that if we got the ETF, then they would probably use that to bid the price up. I would say I'd be very, very nervous if they launched the ETF at all-time highs, which of course they didn't do, so happy days there. But we've been saying for a long time, watch out for options to be launched on the ETFs and watch out for futures to be launched on the ETFs, because that's the kind of thing that does historically mark tops. We've seen it mark prior tops for Bitcoin. This top back here in 2017 was marked by the launch of the futures contracts. We also saw more derivatives and ETFs, although obviously not spot ETFs, launched at this top. We saw the inverse pro short ETF launched right at the bottom, and now we've had the ETFs drive this price up. Price is mooning, and we're getting ready to launch options on the ETFs. Okay, this is just the kind of thing that becomes very, very obvious in hindsight. Like I said, we've seen it at the lows, we've seen it at the high, we saw it in 2017. If it's to happen again sometime around here, it would make a lot of sense to me. Short term, it could certainly drive a lot more demand. It could certainly push the price up. These are also Bitcoin settled options, which is pretty cool. They're not just cash settled, so maybe it's not quite as severe as it seems in terms of risk. But once again, you can see my approach to these markets is only the paranoid survive. We do have one thing that is completely different this time around. Well, there's a few things that are different this time around, okay, but this is certainly one of them. And in purple here is the exchange reserves. This is the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. And what you'll notice is for the first time ever, this is declining into a bull market, okay? We have always had new Bitcoin coming into the space. We've always had freshly mined Bitcoin and plenty of it making its way onto the exchanges. What we've got at the moment is the exchange Bitcoin being drained, okay? So a supply shock is setting up here, which may well give us those hyper-extended, huge, rapid price moves in those very short spaces of time. You know, that's what we've been calling for here, isn't it? Big, big squeezes that make people think, how on earth could it do that? And then the whole thing is over before it's even begun. And this is the kind of thing that could potentially help to drive that. An update on Camel's yellow squiggle is as follows, okay? I still think this is roughly speaking what we're doing. I've been talking about getting to the quarter cycle low on Tuesday. Today is, of course, Tuesday, and we just so happen to have those options launching, as I said. So I would think we are probably about ready to start seeing a push up. Then we'll get that daily cycle low, and then I think it's final blow off top move time. So pretty wild. So far, this has played out really nicely. And again, we are in that third angle, okay? Now, I like to use the daily cycle low, which isn't due until about the 4th of January to set this third and final angle. But if the market shows me something different, then I am open and willing to straighten this thing up and making it even more vertical, which will, of course, get us out sooner. For now, though, I pretty much think it's just a case of sitting back and letting the market do what it's going to do. I'm still very, very bullish short term. I still think we're going to do something approximating that yellow squiggle, something like this, okay? And then off we go. Pretty wild, I know, but that's just how I see it. And a lot of these crypto-related equities in the members section, they are all in the process of backfilling gaps and retesting support before what I believe is the next move up. So I think there's a lot of gains to be made there, getting ready to add more positions in the members section. Look at oil, okay? Oil is still kind of fitting with this idea that we are getting ready to see deflation not resumption of inflation, that all those people doom post in the 1970s inflation fractal are wrong. I can see a lot of new people showing up to the market and writing things in the comments like, but Camel, they're printing money, right? Well, they're not expanding the balance sheet, they are tapering it. So we're nowhere close to actually having the printer go burr. Deflation, I still make the case, is the risk, and oil seems to believe me. So invalidation for this is pretty obvious. If this starts to move higher and break out, then we can talk about the inflation trade. Then we can talk about the soft landing. Then we can talk about economic expansion. But if this thing is about to do what I think it's going to, which is fall off a cliff here, then all of that fits with deflation cutting into a slowdown, et al. Pretty wild times. I'm noticing gold here, okay, in the middle of getting that counter trend bounce. I like to see this. There's a very slim chance that this is a weekly cycle low early, and I'm on guard for that. I have my invalidation. I'm ready to catch that just in case. But on a balance of probabilities, I still think this thing rolls over one more time. I'm going to reserve the rest of those metals and miners for the members. But the long and short of it is yellow squiggle if you're a non-member. If you're a member, then I'll put a video out for you guys tomorrow specifically on the metals and miners. I know deflation is like blasphemy at the moment. You're not allowed to talk about it because everyone wants to say, no, dollar's going to roll over and, you know, inflation is sticky and the loaf of bread in my supermarket hasn't gone down, right? Well, yeah, it's not going to. But again, this is pretty alarming. This yellow squiggle seemed like absolute crack pipery when I posted it, when I first drew it. And now we're still outpacing that. Okay, now unless this is the top, we're about to left translate, plummet here and fail the cycle. Okay, anything other than that, and what we will do is end up right translating, confirming a 3 and 15-year cycle low, and then that puts the rest of this yellow squiggle right on the table as the base case, right? It would kind of be malpractice in a way to suggest that we're going to right translate here, okay, and then suddenly just drop. Something would have to probably break or go very, very wrong for that to occur. I don't really see it, and like I said, if we get this right translated cycle, to me, that just absolutely confirms that's it. That's the low. We'll scratch these ones off, and we'll go in deflation, right? That is characteristic of deflation, to have a very, very strong dollar, and all of this at a time when we're probably getting close to seeing some tops show up, right? We are probably getting close to seeing Camel come out here and start calling tops. This is my new yellow squiggle for the stock market. I'm expecting a daily cycle low, a bit of a bounce. I've got my red arrows in place for when I actually think the tops are going to come in, and as always, I'm open to being wrong. If we get past my red arrow and we continue to move higher, then we'll stay long and strong. We'll continue to push the trades, and it is what it is, right? We'll keep locking in gains along the way. But if this yellow squiggle, which is my new base case, something akin to this is to play out, then again, as we start to get this breakdown, as the stock market starts to roll over, that will force people out of risk and into the dollar. And of course, that will continue to bid this dollar to Valhalla with my yellow squiggle. So pretty wild times, right? Pretty wild times. Super long, super strong, and also super twitchy, nervous, bearish, and doom postery. One thing that's pretty cool is the VIX. We're currently hedged a little bit via the VIX, so we'll see. Hopefully we can get a pop-up, lock in a few points of profit, get one final rollover as the stock market makes one final high, and then I think it is go time. The stock market should be in the neighborhood for a daily cycle low as of about Tuesday next week. So we'll see if we can find that. And then, like I said, this arrow is around the 5th to the 9th of December, depending on the asset. And yeah, we'll see, right? We'll see if I'm right. We'll see if I'm right. So other than that, like I said, look out for the live stream tomorrow. I won't be doing a video in the morning. I will be doing a metals video for the members, so look out for that if you're a level 3 member. Also, if you're a level 3 member, look out for the crypto-related stock positions that I think I'm going to get underneath this week. Might even be as early as today or tomorrow. And for everyone else, I hope you're doing well in life. Please do tune into that live stream on Wednesday at 6 PM GMT. And I'm your boy Camel. Have a great day. Cheers. Bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key. Taking us normies on a bump.